today. Garth, at the outset, you outlined the theme to discuss mitigating economic and socio-physiological and psychological impacts of COVID-19. And so today, my contribution will focus on some of the economic impacts. How, for example, food, agriculture, and fishing will impact on those economic circumstances. I want first, however, to outline that I want to focus on thrift, how people should be conducting themselves, and how agriculture will help us in exercising thrift as we move forward through 2020 and beyond. Before doing so, though, I want to thank those citizens and residents of St. Kitts and Nevis who have been so understanding and so patient when you have to be home for days without being able to go on the streets, which was the other normal, and you have been able to do that with some degree, at least, of assurance that the government is doing the right thing. And so I want to thank you for your patience, the patience you've exercised when you're doing business and paying attention to the program that was put in place for you to be distancing yourself 6 feet away and being patient in carrying out your businesses on the street. I want to thank you for your patience, those of you who go to church and who have not been able to convene churches in the normal way. I noticed, of course, a colleague, a church minister, made a statement the other day, and I would like to suggest to that pastor that it would be good to consult with the COVID team before making public statements, because you do not want to lead your flock astray. We know that 100 years ago, there was a Spanish flu. It happened during the time of the First World War. And during that period of the war, many persons died. But most people who died was when the war ended, because people came out to celebrate the end of the war. And because of that celebration, millions died because of that same Spanish flu. Figures are between 50 million and more that died as a result of the conduct of individuals who thought they could celebrate, disnoticed the norms that were put in place, and they, of course, suffered. Can you imagine they were celebrating not being dead by the war and then came out to celebrate and died because of their socializing? That is not where we want to be in St. Kitts and Nevis. I said I want to focus on the exercise of thrift. It is one of the very first statements I made when I got into the first COVID discussions. Tighten your belts, thrift, because our people tend to spend every dime they get. And I am one who believes that the greatest lesson of thrift was taught to us when we read Genesis. We read about Pharaoh. When Pharaoh learned from Joseph what his dream was, Pharaoh commissioned more barns to be built and to put aside during those 7 years of plenty, so that when the 7 years of famine came, they will have enough and to spare. I am calling on our people to understand that we must exercise thrift. Our grandparents taught us that. I remember as a young person in a home with a grandmother, after my mother had gone to England when I was 3 and died when I was 10, and my father had already moved on to another family. I remember the days when we go to Brighton to cut grass for the Bukra cattle, Bukra animals. I'm speaking in that language because I want you to understand it. That's what my grandmother did. But she put away something. The day she will say she doesn't have any money, no money at all. And yes, when the Jack's car come up the road for the fish, so you could get your protein, she will go and dig it out from where it was. And even when she gives you that money to go to buy the Jacks, you could smell the camphor ball on the money. That is because she understood how to exercise thrift, to put aside. I am calling on our people to do the same thing. Exercise thrift in all of your affairs, especially in the affairs where people work for so much money. They think it's very small, and they put away none. But the same people are on the street drinking heavily, buying food and things to eat with what they should not really eat. Those same foods which they buy, a lot of, expose them to non-communicable diseases. We need to take account. We need to pay attention to what we do with the resources we work for. So I'm saying exercise thrift. And I want to add one more line to that thrift message, because the truth is, I believe too many of our people go around borrowing money they don't have, and they can't afford, buying things they do not need to impress people who don't even like them. It's time for us to exercise thrift. This COVID, this disease, this is telling us that we have to exercise thrift. And so I want us as a people to learn the lesson from this COVID. I want to turn to fishing and agriculture, because I would like to leave some time for my other colleague here to make her opening statement. You see, I'm focusing on fishing, agriculture, because we have had persons who have been leading on the health issue.
Yes.
That was the task provided to them by the cabinet, and they have led on the health issue. Now we have to look at food security. What happens now and in the future? Before going further into that, let me remind you that the Spanish flu lasted for 2 years, from 1918 to 1920. We don't know how long this will last. So we have to position ourselves to be able to feed ourselves, especially if North America begins to say to us, well, listen, we can't allow all our food to go to the Caribbean anymore. We don't know what will happen. So we must position ourselves. We know, for example, that this country consumes 1,300 tons of fish products every year, average, about that. That is about 2.6 million pounds of fish. And we also know that to sustain that demand, 1.7 million pounds, or 850 tons of it, are imported. This provides a huge opportunity for individuals to be cooperative, join a cooperative and start a business to see if you can have an impact. You can just take 1.7 million or 2.2 million out of that money. You need to make sure that you can engage economically in areas where we have, because 1.7 million pounds, you use an average of $10 per pound. Just a small average. That's $17 million. And you cannot tell me that there aren't enough resources and minds in this country who can team up to take a chunk out of that $17 million by producing local fish. It is time that we take advantage of that. You see, with the onset of this pandemic, countries that export fish may very well be concerned about their own nutrition and eventually decide so much of the fish that we produce cannot go to St. Kitts and Nevis or anywhere else around the world for that matter. And so we at the ministry, we are saying that there's an opportunity to reshape the sector, to build support structures that, of course, will end with more productivity and more local consumption of what we produce. Now, we already see, you see, that some of the things we produce are being substituted by those who are shipping to us. For example, the Federation consumes large amounts of codfish. We describe it as saltfish. And we have seen that in instances they have used the fish haddock, replaced it, relabeled it to send here, which we are using as a substitute almost for saltfish. So we have to be concerned about what we are getting and therefore begin to produce more ourselves. And that is what this COVID-19 has given us the opportunity to do. Of course, we also use a lot of grouper, and we also notice that the Swahi fish has been used, swapped for the grouper. And so when we continue to import like that, we really are not 100% sure of what we're actually getting. So we have to up our local production. That is what I would encourage. I'm therefore going to let you know that we have, through the program, set out some support systems for those who are fishing and those who are doing farming. Let me, however, go to what we're doing in farming, because when this COVID-19 reached our shores and we had to put this program in place for curfew, we know that everyone had to abide by what the rules were. It affected our agriculture significantly. And I want to make the point because there are persons who would like to say, what is agriculture doing? Listen, let me tell you. In 2019, agriculture produced 409.96 more metric tons than 2018. So there has been agricultural growth in the country. But what we have to recognize is that in our homes, we must become our own backyard gardeners. I remember as a child growing up, we have a guinea tree, you have a mancipo tree, you have an apple tree, you have a soursop tree. Everyone had trees in their yard. It is why in September, when I went with the Prime Minister to the schools, I called on students of the schools to plant a tree. And maybe we need to introduce, Mr. Prime Minister, may have to come with that, a national day for planting trees. Because we have to plant trees in our homes. Nothing is wrong with you having a breadfruit tree in your yard, a soursop tree in your yard. Become your own farmer. In other words, stop spending money that you could actually save if you plant your own tree in your yard. Nothing is wrong with planting some of the vegetables that you need. It is why we set about in agriculture and have supported those who are doing backyard farming and have provided them with a lot of support to do their backyard farming. On day one, we gave out 50 pounds of string beans, 40 packs of sweet pepper seeds, 84 packs of Bright Star. And I can go on and on. The list is long. Almost 12 or 13 items of distribution of seeds so that people can also farm in the backyard. We put in place a special person to focus on assisting backyard farmers. Help them to understand how to grow, what to grow, and how to treat what they're growing. That is in place. So the backyard farmers, you can approach the Ministry of Agriculture if you haven't done so yet, and you can collect seeds and get the support from the Ministry of Agriculture of how to do your backyard farming. I am confident that if you do that, you will save at least 20 to 30% of what you spend when you go to the supermarkets. I'm not knocking the supermarkets. I'm just saying that it is time we begin to produce some of these things in our yard. We were taught that when we were growing up. Let's go back to basics. We need to do that. I want to suggest that to these people in this federation. You must be able to eat what you grow. Those that our farmers produce and those that what you produce in your own backyards. I'm going to just suggest some figures because, as I said, I want to leave some time for my colleague. We have, for example, out of the stimulus package, already committed $450,000 for those. Remember, we had some farmers who lost livestock. That is already in place. We've already committed and spent $303,000 to acquire more seeds. We have already done $75,000 on feed. Remember that the feed that we're providing now is being sold at half price to those persons who are our customers all the time, getting feed to feed their animals. Of course, another $1.7 million is there for additional batical because we do not want, and it will be free to those who have animals because we want to ensure that we have food security not only in 2020 but beyond. Of course, we put money for animal tags. We spent another $1,000 on additional seedlings to just 2 nurseries, asking them, look, you produce the seeds. Don't do anything. Just produce it, and we will give it out to all of the persons, farmers and others, who want to plant. The response after COVID, we don't know what the uncertainties should be. We should be sufficiently sourced with food from what we grow on the farms, as well as what is grown in our backyards. I want to indicate to you that we've already plowed some 35 acres of land. The Ministry of Agriculture has done that so that we can plant potatoes and other things, because there are some crops, that will help to sustain the well-being of people as long as we can produce them. And if we have too much, we will find a way to create another product downstream to preserve them. Let us produce. I want to indicate to those who are in fishing that we have actually put $50,000 already, selling our wire and other things at the fisheries at half the price. Rope, hooks, all of those things are being sold to fishermen at half the price. And we will be working over the next few weeks to get new measures in place to allow you to be able to fish so that we can have an abundance of fish in the Federation in the unlikely event that the importation of fish is disrupted for one reason or the other. I want Garth to stop there for now. I know that there may be many questions, and I would like to respond to them. And if I keep talking, I'll speak for the 2 hours. So thank you very much, Garth.